There we go. It's recording. Yeah, I just gladly I caught that there before I got too far into the to the details here. But I do want to record this because what I'll do is I'll post this up on YouTube and then I'll put a link to this on the Auto Snowplow website. So if there's anybody that misses tonight's meeting or somebody that wants to go back and for some reason watch us talk about them, these different things, it'll at least be recorded for everybody to see. So again, 2025 Autonomous Snowplow Competition. Here we go. January 17th to 18th, 2025 at Dunwoody College Technology in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Please use the website, www.autosnowplow.com. What I will tell you about that website is I go on there and I'm updating it regularly now. I had to get a new computer, Sunil, so I had to install the software. The worst thing you can do is get a new computer because when you get a new computer, everything was working, and then now you've broken everything. So I got all my web editing software back up and running, and all my passwords and things, so everything's working. So that will be updated even more going forward.
EJ, I think you're muted.
EJ, I think you hit mute there. Thanks, John.
Somehow I hit the mute there. That's interesting. All right. So the 2025 competitors here. We have 11 teams coming to us from North Dakota State College of Science up in Wahpeton, Case Western Reserve University, Iowa State University, University of Laval out of Quebec, University of Ottawa, University of Wisconsin-Madison, North Dakota State University, Lake Area Technical College, and then we do have 3 teams from Dunwoody that are planning to compete as well. So another big grouping this year, 11 teams. I love the photo in the background kind of that you can see here. That's from a couple years ago where you can see the Canadian team on the left there, and just the whole slew of volunteers and teams competing in front of Dunwoody. I had a photo from last year. I was kind of rough looking at because there was no snow in it. So there was like brown grass in the background because we literally had to make snow last year to get this thing off and running. The venue. So those of you that have not been to Dunwoody College Technology, we're at 818 Dunwoody Boulevard. We are just on the outskirts of downtown Minneapolis. As you look at this map, there's Dunwoody Boulevard that runs along the south side of our campus. Interstate 94 runs along the east side of our campus. And then Interstate 394 loops around the north side of our campus. So we're kind of landlocked in between 2 interstates and Dunwoody Boulevard. What's nice about this location is I don't care if you're coming from the east, the north, the west, or the south. Basically, you can take an interstate all the way to Dunwoody, and you will get there. And we're right off of 94 or 394, depending on which way you're coming in from. The other thing to note about the snowplow competition, the check-in area for the snowplow competition. So when you get to Dunwoody that day, you'll notice that check-in arrow. There will be a ton of parking available in that west lot. So if you want to pull in, stop, walk your team in, check in, get your credentials, and then what you'll do is you'll drive around the north side to where the team parking and practice area is. That team parking and practice area, there's actually a garage door that goes into our machine shop. And inside the machine shop there, we will have pits set up. They'll just big taped off areas, one for each team. Dunwoody teams, you guys will not get a pit. You will get whatever space is left over. So that's the detriment of being the host site. We get the advantage of hosting on our own property, but we're going to make sure we take care of these out-of-town teams and get them the biggest spaces that we can get them. So you'll see 8 spaces kind of locked off for all of our teams. And we'll try to get Dunwoody. I shouldn't say that. We'll try to get the Dunwoody folks a decent spot to pit there as well. Then the actual competition is just on the west side of the building there. So there is a parking lot on the west side of the building that's fairly flat there. So some areas of our parking lot have some hills and some tweaks to them. But that area right on the west side is a more freshly paved area, and they did a seal coat on our parking lot this past summer. So the parking lot is much smoother and less kind of granular aggregate showing through as maybe it was in previous years. But that snowplow competition area is right on that west side. So teams, as you go into the pit area, it's a short walk and drive with your vehicle around to the west side of the building where you'll compete. Really, really handy place to do it, and tons and tons of parking. If you have spectators that are coming in from out of town, or if you are, if you're cold and you want to watch some of the competition, we do have indoor seating in one of our classrooms areas there, where there's some big windows that look directly out over the field. So that is a nice feature there. The judges also have a judging area that they can go in and warm up and kind of look out and see as teams are getting ready. But all of the entry for the competition is either through that check-in arrow or through that north entrance into our machine shop to get into the pits. Go to the next slide here. Oh, there we go. When it comes to hotels, restaurants, I know we've got a lot of teams traveling in from other states, other countries for that matter. Probably your easiest location is a straight out Interstate 394, the St. Louis Park area. Hotels out there they range anywhere from 130 to maybe about $200 a night. The nice thing about the St. Louis Park area is it is only a 4-minute commute from that hotel to Dunwoody College. You can lock up and leave a trailer at Dunwoody overnight if that's what you want to do. I know there are some teams that take their vehicles with them. I'll mention one other thing here. There's another area where the hotels are a little less expensive. If you go up to the Brooklyn Center area, it's about 10 miles to Dunwoody, but it's straight north of Dunwoody. Brooklyn Center, you can get a hotel as cheap as about $100. And, I think Holiday Inn Express, and there's a few other ones up there. So 100 to 150, 100 to 160. St. Louis Park, you're looking at more like a 130 to 180. The nice thing about the St. Louis Park area is if you end up staying over there, you'll kind of notice the Showplace Icon Theater on the left there, and kind of where that Showplace Icon Theater, there's 2 hotels within walking distance of that. And all around that Icon Theater is basically like a shopping complex with tons and tons of restaurants and things to do and bars and all kinds of. There's some great stuff over there. So if you're looking for a place where you can find something to eat and be within walking distance and not have to drive, that's a great place to stay. But again, Brooklyn Center's a little less expensive. I'm wondering if Ian, I do ask you to do this every year, Ian. The Case Western team has a little different methodology that they use as far as what they do when they come to Minnesota. I don't know if Ian, if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about you guys' accommodations.
Yeah, sure. So usually what we're up to is that we come in a day or so earlier, and we get like an Airbnb, usually an Airbnb that's got access to like a cul-de-sac or a parking lot or something like that. And so we'll just kind of host, a team, usually trying to get a bunch of students in as sort of a like, a practice and work kind of house while we all kind of just set up in this Airbnb for a little while, and kind of take our robot to and from competition. That worked well in the past. It's worked poorly in the past. So your mileage may vary, but it is kind of nice to have that as a setting. But obviously there are other expenses and things to kind of keep in mind with that as well. It only really makes sense as well if you've got enough students that it becomes comparable to hotel costs. I think that was one of the reasons why we first started doing it, because we're like, if you have 6 or 8 students who are not too friendly with each other, or not so cozy that they want to be cooped up in a hotel room together, sometimes it's easier to find couches and stuff like that. And you can also save a little bit on like the food expenses if you're willing to go grocery shopping and do your own kind of homekeeping stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. And part of it is because it's a good atmosphere to practice and work in, and a lot of people like using it as a tutorial for how to do some of the ROS related things that we end up doing. So yeah, it's kind of we call it like a coding boot camp, basically, is what we end up doing. Awesome. Yeah, and success or your success or failure, your mileage may vary.
I appreciate that, Ian. We actually did that with a team we brought out to California for a Baja SAE competition, and the students absolutely loved it. They found a Airbnb with like 5 bedrooms, and there was like 10 students, and it just worked out great. And I do agree with you, Ian. It could definitely save you some money if you're willing to do some shopping and do some cooking, at the house versus going out to a restaurant every night or something like that. But obviously, that ability to bring your robot back if you've got access to a street or a cul-de-sac where you can do some practicing, or a driveway or something like that, I think that's a huge advantage too. So a number of different ideas. St. Louis Park, great area, the easiest commute to Dunwoody. Lots of stuff to do over there. If you have a trailer, you can leave it at Dunwoody, stay in the St. Louis Park area. Brooklyn Center, a little bit more economical. If you're a little bit more worried about the cost, I did find some as low as $100 up in Brooklyn Center. And then obviously the Airbnb being another thing to at least look at when you're looking at accommodations for the competition. So definitely look at where we're located if you're considering Airbnbs or hotels in different areas from what we're talking about. So this will be the workspace that everybody will have. So what you see here is you actually see three of our robots sitting on the left-hand side over there. We'll try to give everybody as big a pit area as we can possibly give you. So we'll make sure that you'll have power. So there'll be extension cord with at least three receptacles that you can plug into there. There is other stuff available. So if you forget a tool, or if you forget, I don't know, if you forget something silly, maybe a charging cord, or a specific tool that you need or something like that. The great thing is that our tool crib will be open those days. So our tool crib is just down the hall down there on the left-hand side, and the tool crib will be managed by our tool crib manager, and you can check out a tool. So if you need a drill and a tap, if you need an extension cord, if you need, some Gorilla Glue, if it's not in our tool crib, you probably don't need it. Now, what we won't have in our tool crib, we won't have some of the electronics that you may need. So if you've got a specific motor controller, a specific sensor, if you need wire, we have wire, wire strippers. We have the tools, but we don't have things specific to the things that you might need on your vehicle itself. But any tool you can likely find here. The other things, we have the machine shop. We will have one of our machine tool instructors there during the competition. So if at some point, I don't know, you need to machine out a chunk of aluminum or drill and tap something, or you break something and you really need access to something, catch up with one of our machine shop instructors. They'll set you up on a lathe or a mill. If you haven't operated that equipment, they'll work with you on it. If you've operated equipment like that before, they'll work with you on it until they're confident you know what you're doing. Same with the welding. We will have a small weld cell set up at the campus as well. So if there's something you need welded, we will have some availability to welding. But we try not to do too much welding because this is not normally a weld space. So we're not going to, don't bring a robot and parts and expect to weld it together on campus. That's probably not going to work out. But when it comes to small repairs or missing tools or stuff like that, that's all stuff that we can do. Obviously, restrooms are on the same level, close to here. There's some big areas where you can spread out. I remember last year NDSU had a fairly significant sized team, and I remember some of the folks from the NDSU team doing their homework during some downtime. Saw some calculus books out and things as they were doing some homework, or just sitting over there talking about the competition, or grabbing some food and some drink and sitting down with that. Friday, Dunwoody's not providing any food. The main reason why is Friday teams are going to arrive when they arrive. And Friday will be kind of a day to do your FQR and do things like that during the day. That being said, the reception on Friday night, we will provide a big spread for you. So I think that actually gives me a chance to go to the next slide, because I think that's exactly what the next slide is. There we go. So like I said, tonight is the Snowplow Competition kickoff meeting. November and December, Sunil will be getting out more information to us in the near future about the preliminary design review presentations. 116, kind of like Ian was mentioning, if you're coming in from out of town, it may make sense to arrive a day early. January 16th, if you've got a long drive, if you drive that day, because on January 17th, which is Friday, the building will be open and Richard Kaler will be set up. And I also have one of our automotive instructors from Dunwoody that helps him out a little bit with this, but to do the final qualification review inspections. So my advice on that to everybody is get with Richard as soon as you can on Friday. So if you're driving in from outstate, I know Lake Area Tech does this. They get on the road Friday morning. They leave really early. so they can get in by 10 a.m. or something. What you don't want to do is try to get in for your FQR inspection at 3 o'clock p.m. Because that really doesn't give you any time to fix something. If Richard discovers, hey, one of your e-stops doesn't work, or you're not meeting one of the FQR regulations, if you can get in there in the morning, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., or even 10 a.m., if something goes wrong on the FQR, you have the rest of the day, all the way up until 4 p.m., to get those FQR fixes in. Now, my personal goal, and I know Sunil's goal, and it's Richard's goal, it's all of our goal, is we don't want to see any team travel to Minneapolis and not compete. So if for some reason you are in that FQR and there's something going wrong, or there's a piece you need, or you need to rewire or machine something or whatever it is, please reach out to the Dunwoody folks. My goal, my mission for my teams is to make sure every vehicle gets on the course, even if it means we have to help somebody out, overnight or after the FQRs are done, and we need to find Richard and get it back through an FQR on Saturday morning. We'll do whatever we do to make that happen. We had a team last year, I think it was Iowa State last year, busted something on their RC controller, and we were able to go up to the electronics lab, find a switch that wasn't perfect, but it was a switch that could be soldered in, and it worked. And it just was cool to see kind of the teamwork between the teams to make sure everybody gets a chance to compete. January 17th, that night, there will be plenty of food that night. So come hungry for the reception and posters.
Can I interject something really quickly before we get too far away from the PDRs?
Go for it, Richard. Absolutely.
I've had a lot of teams in the past who apparently haven't even read the FQR checklist. So it's better to read the FQR checklist a couple of weeks in advance and show up at 3 p.m. Than to not read it and show up at 8 a.m. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, so I do have that FQR checklist in this presentation. So I would agree with Richard completely on this. And I've actually, for the Dunwoody teams, I always tell the Dunwoody teams to find somebody else. Don't go, obviously make sure you meet all the requirements of the FQR, but go find somebody else. Find a faculty member or a student in a different program or something like that and say, hey, would you mind just running through this FQR checklist on our vehicle and see if you think we meet all the requirements? Because sometimes you get some tunnel vision and you think, oh yeah, we're good. And then come to find out you measured something, or Richard measured something and says, no, that's too big, or that's too small, or that doesn't work from a far enough distance or something like that. So I think that's helpful. So that evening, so again, FQRs are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on that Friday. The reception and posters, and there'll be more information coming out about precisely what to put on your posters, but that reception will be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on that Friday night. So that'll be an opportunity to be in our McMillan Center. We will have food catered in, plenty to eat and drink, and then a chance for the judges to walk around and talk to the teams and look at the posters, and also a chance for the team members to go around and look at the competition and talk to them about what's going on. Bright and early on Saturday morning, we need to be running. So we always put in this 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. For the morning section of the competition, 12 to 1 for lunch, and then 1 to 5 for the afternoon session of the competition. One thing to note about that is we need people to be flexible. So if as an example, if one team isn't ready to go, we may ask you to step up and slide the team behind them in and kind of swap positions. Again, our goal is not to kick somebody out because they weren't ready to go. Our goal is to get everybody to plow snow. So Dunwoody teams, you guys have been great about moving around or shifting around as needed, but I'd ask all the teams if you can do that. Myself and Alex, one of my faculty members here, we kind of play walk through the pits and say, hey, you're on deck, you're after them. And, so we just kind of try to keep people queued up. And then once you get out there, you're working with Sunil and his bunch on the actual competition. And then Saturday evening, that'll be our award ceremony from approximately 6 to 7 o'clock. All of these times on Saturday need to be flexible because we do know stuff happens. Depending on how long we go, lunch may shift back a little bit, may shift forward a little bit. We may shift people out for lunch in waves, depending on where we're at. And it's not uncommon where we might end up pushing that PM part of the competition a little bit past 5 p.m. I know there was one year where Dunwoody was going last on Saturday, and it was dark by the time we actually completed our run. So, but awards again from 6 to 7 p.m. that night. So with that, I'm going to shut up for a little bit. I'm going to turn this over to Sunil. And Sunil, I'll let you take over. I've got a couple of slides, one for the competition field, one for the FQR, and then I can also bring up the rule book at any time if you need me to.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, CJ. That's great, and thanks for the lead in there and the information. Just going to go over a list of either the changes or the how the competition is run, so the new people can understand it as well, or get familiar with it, and the people who have been competing for a while know what the existing changes are for this year. Feel free to jump in and ask questions, or I think the chat's open. You could ask it that way, and they could relay that if you don't want to interrupt. Let me start by saying we are excited about another year. Just like EJ said, it's number 15. It's been excellent that we've gone this long, and we still have the support from the various organizations. We have one area that EJ and I and others work pretty hard at is keeping sponsors connected with the competition. That includes some legacy sponsors that have been around for almost the entire event, the Honeywells and the Northrop Grumman part here, the Twin Cities, as well as quite a number of vendors that have been either contributing in kind or being judges or coming to watch the event, or either professional societies or commercial groups. And EJ's and his team, marketing team, has done a great job getting them. Those are the ones that are providing the funding for the awards that we provide for the competition, and those are also ones that we have successfully placed students for jobs as over time. So it is a great opportunity for you to meet them. And so as part of the competition, we try to make sure you understand that it's not just a come here, compete against a few students and be done. Many of the judges that we bring in as part of the competition are either sponsors or related to the sponsors, and they'll be part of it. Our committee that is basically coordinating the event on Saturday with help from Dunwoody, but we bring in the judges that are you would say isolated or separate from the committee, so that there's they're coming from a very fresh perspective when they're looking at the event. And we've had an excellent opportunity to do that for years, and nice that we have a lot of returning judges over the time. Some of you will probably recognize them. Some of you have been there for years. That's a good thing, as well as many of them are interested in meeting the students and be involved, because either they've been doing this for quite a while, know what you're going through, or they're excited about seeing your the vehicles that you've produced. So again, welcome to the event this year. I hope all the new teams find this as exciting as we like to run it. It's of course quite a lot of interest in the industry these days with autonomous robots or autonomous capability. We feel that clearing snow is a tremendous challenge, and you will see, as EJ has alluded to in much of his discussion, is you need the capability to be prepared to modify your vehicle. There'll be one of the biggest things that we find in the events is batteries that people use as electric power are susceptible to the cold. Last few years has been fairly warm, so we've been happy with that, or some of us have been happy standing out there all along, but other years has been tremendously cold. And we almost hit minus 25 degrees F and at the St. Paul Carnival one year, and we almost had to stop the event. Fortunately, we've never had to do that, but be prepared for everything. So not only worrying about how your vehicle is going to operate, but like Ian and others have talked about where they stay and their accommodations, but also on that day, Friday and Saturday, you have to be prepared to be outside. And we want to make sure that people know that ahead of time. Become prepared. Part of the meetings that EJ will have going forward is we'll try and encourage you to make sure you've got appropriate clothing. Probably the most important thing is a good footwear, because you don't want to wear, which has happened. We don't require you to wear a dress outfit, even though you're going to be talking to sponsors. Most of those judges are going to be in snowmobile outfits, so and big boots. So you're welcome to wear whatever is comfortable and is and warm, but you will be going in and out, but be prepared for a cold outside. So that's kind of the logistics of the event. This year in January, we can't predict what's going to happen. As EJ mentioned, last year we had to manufacture snow. We may do that again this year because actually EJ's team, James Jorgensen and others did an excellent job of producing that. And it was a nice fresh snow for everybody to use. It didn't have any impurities in it, like rocks or salt or anything like that. It's just we'll have to see what the weather provides for us this year. Maybe we'll have plenty of snow and not have to worry about it. So they will be. We will have a couple meetings going forward, but the main event that's coming up next is what we call the preliminary design review, which many of you maybe are familiar with already as part of the design process for engineering. But it's part of our way of encouraging you to get the design to a point where you're comfortable and ready to deploy your vehicle as in January or before that, but also a chance for our judges to maybe impart some of their experience on what has happened over the years of our development and things for you to watch. The preliminary design review is primarily run by a set of judges that will ask you to give a presentation. We'll even give you the template of the elements that we would like you to go over in the PDR. It's Jonah, if you could remind me, is it 20 minutes or of the presentation for a PDR typically? Do you remember the time slot is for that?
Don't remember offhand how long a PDR
it's
runs.
in roughly that time frame where you give a 10 to 15 minute presentation and about 5 or 10 minutes of questions or feedback from the judges. That will be then scored, and that is only 5% of your score. So most of the percents of your competition will be focused on the actual event on the Saturday of the event. But at the same time, yeah, thanks, EJ. If you can spin down for a few pages, that would pull mine up too, so I can tell you what pages, just down to where the scoring is, that would be helpful. So the 5% is the preliminary design review. Then we do 10% on the evening of the reception, which EJ had mentioned on Friday night. We like to have a poster session. We know many of the teams produce this anyway because you like to have it at your school, and a 2 foot by 3 foot poster or something like that that shows your what your vehicle is operating, how is it, what sensors or what configuration or what capability you're using for navigation and guidance control. Something to talk to, because in this case, the student presentation or poster session and reception, that is a big time for you to talk to the sponsors that are there. Many of them are come to look at your posters and your vehicles or at least pictures of your vehicles, and go through that review with you to just learn more. And we do a small scoring there. And again, it doesn't affect your score too much, but both the preliminary design review and the poster session do count 15%. So we encourage you to be participating in those and do your best because sometimes it can make a difference when the teams run pretty close in the actual event on the Saturday. So that we will try. Our committee right now is working on dates for the PDR. We try to accommodate you because we know it's a big challenge for various teams when they're available, what time of day is better for your team or things like that. So we'll try and give you a set of times and dates that are coming. But usually we try and do it in the first half of November. That way you can get as much information before the holidays and the end of the school semester or trimester, whatever you're on. As EJ's mentioned, the FQR, the final qualification review that Richard and others are coordinating, that's meant again to be a safety review. So you've built the vehicle to the rulebook says what components you have to build it towards, and the size or the speed, various things like that. And that FQR will be run through by our committee members again, just to make sure that they're safe. We've had one instance over the past 15 years where a vehicle did go runaway, and the robot tried to attack our videographer that was there. Unfortunately, one of the judges was able to hit the emergency stop, and we got some great video, but nobody got hurt to make it. So we don't want any situations like that at all, and it should be part of your thought of building an autonomous vehicle, how it knows itself that there's a possibly an isolated incident that it has to be careful with. So EJ is showing the FQR right now, and there's broken up into categories like the physical dimensions and the operation, and then the safety features that you have to have. If you're using some kind of laser, which teams have used for their use, we asked for some safety features there, and to explain to Richard and others what you're using, so that we can be safe both for the spectators, the other participants that are in there, as well as the judges and the teams themselves. Then focusing on the nav portion, we'd very much like to learn how you're navigating around the course, what sensors you're using, what type of algorithms. Those are brought in there. You're not quizzed on that in the FQR, but it's just meant to go down the list of that. There's a good thought to put it in your poster presentation of how you're doing that feature, because many of the sponsors are looking for fresh ideas from students like you that want to come up with a solution. Maybe you come up with a machine learning capability or an AI concept that might be very attractive to them for their applications. And then there's a few other things like we learned over years. Teams wanted to expel some fluids and things like that, and that actually was great for them, but it made it really poor for the next team. That, for example, everything iced over. So there's a few of those from lessons learned from ourselves, as well as we don't expect a future commercial vehicle to operate in those manners. So that will be Friday. Now let me go over the Saturday event is if you can run to the diagram. Yeah, great, thank you. So let's just talk about that. The field is in the shape of we call it a T, and it's there's an area in green off to the right where the teams would stand. Then the vehicle would start in the starting zone, which we call the garage. And once the timer goes and starts, the vehicle would autonomously exit and start doing its plowing. And if you think of the concept, the first two where EJ's got the cursor there is meant to emulate at the end of a driveway, and then the turns onto a sidewalk that you'd end up clearing. It's 10 meters long with two extra 1 meter squares that are used for the driveway. And it requires teams to do a nice turn and then also turn back. So this year, what has changed? And for the new teams, feel free to ask any questions specific about this. But this year, what changed is we increased the size of the maneuvering zone. If you don't mind showing that, EJ, if you can circle those. At the top and the bottom, or the left and the right of the field, are two zones where you turn, the vehicle would automatically turn in order to reorient itself to be able to plow out the snow as much as it can. Last year's, we had it as 2 meters in depth, and that was just on the edge of what some teams, depending on the size of the vehicle, could effectively turn, and we didn't want to have that as a limitation. So other than that, there's the snow was in the white 1 meter squares. The blue boundary is what we call the overall boundary that you cannot go beyond. Your vehicle cannot extend beyond there, or there's some penalties for doing that, and that's to show that you have effective navigation. But also on here, which aren't shown directly on the screen, but as part of the event, are two posts. One will be positioned somewhere in the snow path itself, which we don't tell you until the day of the event. And then another one will be outside somewhere in the plowed zone that's shown here on the screen, just in the offset of the snow field. The goal is for you to autonomously maneuver around there. So the pole is not meant to be a problem. It's meant to represent something, perhaps a tree or a parking meter, which we are all familiar with when it used to be downtown St. Paul. So there are things that your vehicle would have to maneuver around. We don't have any dynamic events, although we've had that in the past where something would come into the field of view and you'd be required to, for example, say, some children come down the street and they're walking in front of the vehicle. You would want to have safety for the vehicle to stop. At this time, we don't have anything. Instead, right now, it's just the fixed posts that you're required to stop at or maneuver around. We specifically increased the penalty this year for those posts. So it went from 15% to 20% because we'd like teams to really work hard to maneuver around there. So again, you won't know where they're going to be placed, but one will be inside one of those 1 meter squares. I'll tell you this, we try not to put it in the very first one that you would have to exit the garage because we thought that was a little bit too aggressive, but it likely will be somewhere along the 10 1 meter squares in a row. So that's been updated to 20%. So please be aware of that, because you might have a great plowing run, but that hitting that post, either the one inside or outside of the snowpath, could be affecting you this year. Another change we had is the restarts, and we're just going over that for teams that are new. You have the option to go out, start plowing, and something might go wrong. Your vehicle might get confused of where it's located. There might be a reason you want to do a full restart, and you're allowed to bring the vehicle all the way back to the start and start your run over and keep on going to plow as much snow as you can in a single run. You've been given a total of 20 minutes, and you're allowed to do unlimited number of restarts. And in the past, we used to penalize every one you did. This year, we've changed that. We didn't feel that that was effective in terms of encouraging teams to try to finish their run in the 20 minutes. So what we've capped the number of penalties for restarts is to 2. So say, for example, there's something wrong with your battery and it can go just a certain distance and it's able to go a certain length and then it has to stop, in which case you might declare a restart and start over and get more snow completed. And you want to just keep on going, but we'll only penalize you for the first 2 instead of all the ones that you need to do in a restart. I hope that's clear. Then the other penalties that we have is we asked that the snow be plowed into the snow zones that are shown there in green. The reason is we're trying to have you not only autonomously navigate around the course, but effectively plow it into where it would be. You wouldn't dump it into the other areas because those might be the street or somebody else's driveway or something like that. So you're planning your guidance of the vehicle correctly to be pushing the snow into the right areas. There is also a penalty for when you end your run to autonomously arrive back at the garage. So once you've done your plowing, the goal is to return there. And if you don't, and what we right now is penalize if no part of the vehicle enters that, what is a black line shown there, which is effectively the doorway into the garage. If any part exceeds over that line into the garage, then effectively we say you've arrived at the garage. But if you don't, there's a 20% penalty. Okay. So I hope those are clear. Just kind of quick reviewing. We increase the size of maneuvering zone. We increase the penalty for the hitting the post, but decrease the penalty for the restarts. There is also a bonus for clearing faster than 20 minutes. So speed is important, but we don't want you to go beyond the 2 meters per second limitation. But if you are able to clear the snow and do it, say, under 10 minutes or less than 20 minutes, you're getting a bonus for that. So the goal there is to do it efficiently, but also in a timely manner. Then let's go to the next page. So we've talked about the FQR, but I just going to reinforce this because it's something we want to make sure everybody understands. It is in the back of the appendix of the rulebook, this list. Please go through it. Go through it yourself. And EJ's wise advice to you all is primarily to have someone else also go through it before you leave your university to come here. Just make sure that the basics are all taken care of. Your sizing, your operation, you're able to answer those questions. That way, when you meet with Richard and the Dunwoody folks, you are able to go through the list, and it actually goes pretty quickly. But you'd be surprised from when you leave your university to when you arrive at Dunwoody, things don't always work out as you expect. These wires can get loose from the travel, or batteries die, and something's not operating the way you expect. So that's why we would like you to go through this to verify the capability. One thing, if you don't mind, EJ, bringing up the map that you have of the Dunwoody campus. Thank you. In the picture to the north, or right where it says team parking and practice, we set up. There should be enough snow there, and there's usually it's fairly clear, meaning no vehicles. It's a great place for you to go out and do your own practicing. You can bring cones, you can bring anything you want to set up a representative field. You're able to use shovels, like I said, to lay out some snow paths that you'd like to shovel and run there. So there's quite a lot of space, and I would guess all 11 teams could be running it at once right there if they really needed to. Then you would come around, which would be on the picture to the left side where it's the snow competition area, and we'll have 2 fields set up there. So Saturday, as EJ has said, from 8 till noon, we'll have 2 fields set up so that we can either run teams back to back, or if we have to run all 11 in the morning, we might be running some of them concurrently. And as EJ has done real well in the past, he'll come make sure that the sequence of the team is working well for everybody who possibly has any issues with their vehicles, but at the same time, quickly getting to the field and getting ready to go from there. We do put barriers, we call them pedestrian barriers, with the signage around the field so that no spectators come into that area. That's primarily for safety, but there will be quite a number of volunteers who are doing the snow field setup, the judging, and the snow removal after a run has been completed. So there'll be quite a lot of people coming around. You want to drive safely. You're welcome to drive in a remote control fashion from one location to the other. You don't have to do that autonomously. And then when you get to the event, the committee members will help you get set up in the field that you're selected. We call them either the north or the south field. And then you'll be positioned getting ready for your run, and then there'll be an announcer that will be coordinating more of that, but also announcing to the crowd that's there, that's going, watching and what's happening, and get ready for any specific run you're going to do. And the venue, as I said before, Dunwoody is excellent for this. They've had a fantastic remodel over the last couple of years and put in these beautiful windows that overlook the field. I'm sure EJ had a lot to do with getting those set up with these beautiful Florida ceiling windows that allow for a great view for the event and nice warm inside. So if family members are coming and or fellow schoolmates or anything like that, you're welcome to have them in there watching. We like them to be outside, but we realize that it might be too cold for some people, young kids or older adults, or they might just prefer to be inside with a warm cup of coffee or cocoa. Let's see. My last point here is the judges. I mentioned that there'll be both committee members that are coordinating the judges, as well as sponsors that are doing the judging. And the way we have done it up to this point is laid out. Once a run is complete and the vehicle is removed as best we can, we put up lines of string that mark out the 1 meter squares quickly for their visibility, and they assess anywhere from 0 to 100% in 5% increments, I think is correct the way that we do it, to say that they believe that how much has been cleared from any 1 meter squared. Those are accumulated across 3 judges at least, and then a weighted score is provided for all the teams. In this year's competition, we run 1 in the morning and then 1 in the afternoon, and your best score is used to provide the score that would be part of your competition. So we'll just take the highest of them to give you the best score. We can tell you from past experience that some teams that do fantastic in the morning think they've got it in the bag, they've won the competition, and someone sneaks up in the afternoon and does an even better run. So be prepared to try to do 2 excellent runs and go from there. However, we've also had the case where people have not been able to run in the morning and they only do 1 run in the afternoon. So I think that's everything. I'm just going to quickly leave it open to Jonah and Richard from the committee. Is there any items I might have missed or you think we should reinforce?
Let me call up my little notebook here. Oh, great. I can't find it. Where'd it go? Too many icons on my taskbar. Okay. One thing that we've seen is that people have ordered 35 millimeter buttons for their e-stop, and they get them, and during FQR, it turns out that they are actually 33 millimeter buttons. So check that in advance. Highly recommended that your e-stop transmit continuously to provide permission to run rather than transmit a command to stop. That way, if you lose radio contact, things gets out of range or there's some interference, the machine just stops. And if you're using some exotic power source, in other words, anything other than lead acid batteries or gasoline, we should touch base in advance. It's legal, but we just have to make sure that we're doing it in a safe way. So,
great, thanks, Richard. Yeah, we've been aware of these e-stops shipped from various vendors that say state one dimension in online, and you think, oh, everything's fine. But when you actually get it, the plastic is slightly smaller, and there's different ways you can get better. But as I mentioned that story for a reason, is the only reason that vehicle was stopped is because a judge was able to reach over and hit that stop. And there should be clear obstructions. You want to be able to hit it without banging up against a pole or any other part of the vehicle. And it is important that the switch for e-stop, which is I call it a dead man, but that's not always the best name. But if you let go, or if you're unable to communicate, the vehicle can no longer stop, or can no longer continue. It will automatically stop because of that heartbeat is not available for its signal. Those are the best practices for any vehicle if you think anything you'd like to use autonomously in your yard. Jonah, any other comments, scoring or the field?
I believe you went over the updates for this year's scoring. We didn't change too much, mostly just trying to do the things that you said, which is encourage people to avoid hitting the posts and to make restarts not as hard hitting if you have a lot of them.
Yeah. So if you get the opportunity, or we hope you've read the rule book. We highly encourage you to do that, and I hope everybody on the team should be aware of it. This is the scoring equation that we use in our spreadsheets. To the first term there is the measure of the field, the fraction of the snow cleared. Say you did 100%, but then you had some de-weighting because you had some penalties, but then you also had a bonus because you got it done in a certain amount of time. That's basically what the equation is shown here. We do our best to do real-time scoring. That's a feature that we've been adding over the years. It isn't perfect, so it will take a little time. We for sure try to have scores for the morning session, so you know where you stand. But we're trying a little bit in to be able to relay the. Dunwoody's been very good at having videos that show the scoring, the spreadsheets of the teams, where they're standing. And we're trying to get those scores to you as quickly as possible. At the end, EJ has mentioned there's various awards that we'd like to give out, and one's a sports personship award, and that's sometimes what the committee is doing at the end of the day to find out who did the best presentation, who did the best write-up, who did we call them Golden Shovel Awards, Golden. Smile Awards for the sportsmanship, and then of course the ranking of the teams. And EJ will make teams aware of the awards, the award amounts, that is sponsor contribution dependent. And we usually at least do the first, we try to rank everybody so they know where they are, and then there's awards for the top ones that during the competition. Okay, I think that's everything. We're just showing right here are actually the physical posts that we use, so they are available online. You can get them, and if you'd like to use something very similar for your evaluation and setup for those teams that maybe have not used them before. Okay, I think that's everything we had, and we're getting close to the hour. So, EJ, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe we take some questions from any of the teams.
Looks like you're muted again there, EJ. But I also saw a pop-up saying that we only had like 5 minutes left in the meeting.
Well, EJ is going to kick us all out. Yeah.
Well, it won't kick you out, but I do want to. If you got 5 minutes left, I do think if anybody's got some questions we got Sunil and Richard and Jonah on here. Great time to ask these folks questions, especially if there's specifics either about the competition scoring or the way it's run, or about logistics that I can answer for you.
If you don't want to bring up the questions now, or your team wants to think about it, we're happy to answer anything going forward. We'll probably do it via email and then share it to the answers to those to all the teams, so they kind of know where, the frequently asked question type of thing.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Can you guys
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. Are you allowed to put trackers on the obstacles? Like, could you put like a fiducial target or like a GPS on it, or like some other like way to detect it, or are you not allowed to touch the obstacles at all?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking that. Actually, you're not allowed to touch the obstacles. So the field is supposed to be pristine. You're not even supposed to come beyond the getting the vehicle into the garage, and that's meant so that everybody has the same field. We are real cautious about people have some in the past accidentally stood in the snowfield, and that affects the scoring in that. So no, we do not allow that. That's an interesting question, though. The committee could take that up and consider that for future years, because you're right, that might be a method of avoiding the posts for different approaches. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, so just to be like certain, right? You are not allowed to make any modifications to the obstacles during the competition.
That's correct.
They must remain as is. Okay.
As is, right. Yep. Any other questions?
Oh, there we go. Had my mic off this time. I do really like that idea that Liam just presented there, and something for you guys to consider going forward, given the new weights of the penalties for striking the obstacles. Perhaps one concept for consideration is that only one of the two bollards may be modified in some way like that, and the other one, so for example, to simulate a fire hydrant, something that's a fixture in the path of the snowplow, as opposed to the other one simulating more of a pedestrian in the way.
That's good. Those are good ideas. We probably would not make the change now because it would be unfair for everyone at this point. But we like that idea, and those are not poor ideas for an actual implementation. You might be part of your vehicle sale that you provide some trackers, as they're called, that you want to avoid. However, I will bring up quickly that you are allowed to put around navigation aids in the plowed and maneuvering zone. It has to be, we've allowed both inside and outside of the field in the past because we've been modifying the approach here. So we wouldn't allow you, so Liam, if you wanted to take that concept part ways, you would be allowed to put a tracker on the field prior to your run, but you could not touch the field, the snow path, or the blue boundary, or the posts themselves. But you would be allowed to put a tracker, say it's on its own post, say inside one of the corners of the blue boundary zone.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Any other questions before we get? EJ says we all have to go home.
He's really very stern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was just
great professor, right on time. Everybody's up.
I do invite you guys.
Here.
Go ahead.
I was wondering now. I saw there were markers on the maneuvering areas on the ends of the field. Are those markers all the way down the entire path?
Yeah, let's bring those up. That's a great question. Those are our judging markers. They're basically small. They're not very visible, to be honest. They're tape, and we use that to align where the string is. If EJ, maybe you could bring your cursor. Yeah, exactly. We put string from those two green ones down to the ones at the bottom, and that aligns the edges of those paths. You may be able to pick those up with some kind of sensor or optical camera, for example. They are typically marked every 1 meter, because if you can look, the cross ones across the field, the yellows are meant to identify where the 1 meter squares are.
And those are on the ground, or are they up, like high enough that?
No, they're if you can bring a picture up, maybe EJ, the blue boundary is made of PVC pipe. It's about a 2-inch diameter. Yeah, thanks. And there you go. They're great. And you can see, actually right at their feet there, you can see those yellow and green tapes that we put on there for our reference to make sure the boundary is lined up for everybody exactly around the field. But yes, those are there. They're as visible as you can see basically here on the image. But it's a blue, we use that PVC because if you hit it, it's not going to get destroyed. It does move. We allow it to slide away if you hit it with your vehicle, but it does have to get put back in place at our markings along the field everywhere we can before your run is restarted.
Because the one year I saw you had a magnetic sensor being used to guide the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Was that did they lay something out, or were they using? Did. Okay.
I will let the experts tell you how they did it.
I don't know if Ashley or Kevin, if you're on, you want to talk about how that magnetic sensor strip works?
I wasn't on the team, but I could try to explain it.
Go for it.
We lay out magnetic strips, and on the arm, there, I believe, are two separate sensors. So when a reading on one sensor is higher than the other, we know that we're out of alignment related to that strip of magnets. So it's kind of like a line following robot where instead of we're using infrared and a black line, we're using a magnetic strip and two magnetic sensors.
And just to be clear, that those strips were placed in the plowed snow and the maneuvering zones.
Right. They have to be away.
Rather than interfering with any of the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and this is a navigation aid specifically from that team. This is not something normally on the field.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, teams are allowed to set up. We've had teams that use, Case Western has used UWB sensors. Some have used GPS, like a differential ground station. Dunwoody's done great on a simple magnetic sensors. If you think you could embed that in your driveway and you could use that as a guiding strip. Others have used optical. Some people have put orange cones all the way around the snowfield. You're allowed to put up your solution. That's really why we'd like to know at PDR how you're going to approach it, and if there's a violation possible, we can make sure you're aware of that before you arrive here. But most teams just come up with a solution of either internally are measuring where they are with respect to the beginning, or they use some fiducials like cones or tags, or I think you might have seen those April tags or QR code tags that some teams have used.
Yeah, there's no reason to wait until FQR to ask questions about this sort of thing. You want to ask us, and you don't even have to wait for PDR. So if there's going to be an issue, you want to give yourself as much time as possible to deal with it.
Are you allowed to drive the course, like do an AV line kind of thing before you?
Not the actual field, but as I said, you could. So no, you could not do an actual field before your run. No, because you can only set up your aids, we call them, and be prepared to do the run at when your counter starts. But you can practice all you want, as I showed in that practice area. So you kind of be familiar with it and know. Then what happens is, just historically, we used to require that any setup of the nav aids was part of your 20-minute run. But what happens is too many people start literally running at 20 minutes, getting started, and we had slipping, and that just looked like a potential for a possible disaster. So we decided now in the last couple of years that when it's your turn for your run, you're given the opportunity to come set up your field the way you want it. Someone will one of the committee members will coordinate with you to make sure it's safe and you're not standing on the field or anything like that, the boundaries or the snow path. And then once you're set up, then you have your vehicle ready to start, and your team can declare you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
I'd even show an example here, which can you guys hear me? I'm famous for not unmuting here. But when you look here, this is Lake Area Tech's last year, and I thought this was kind of a unique solution. They just laid down a yellow rope, and they had a camera on there, and the yellow rope just kind of went all the way around the course. But it didn't touch the snow.
If it actually worked, though.
Yeah, well, I think the
problem details.
The wake of the snow pushed the yellow rope a little bit, but other than that, it was working great for a while.
Any other questions? Got some good ones already.
I guess I would add that while we're not measuring your setup time, we do want to be sensitive to the competition schedule. So I think, does it have to be done within 3 minutes? No, but if it takes you an hour to set it up, that's going to be a problem. So if you have any doubts about it, just ping us in advance and we'll work it out.
And like Sunil had mentioned earlier too, you guys can, whether you do it on Friday during FQRs, you can test all you want out there. So if you go to, and you work with Richard and you get through FQR, if you want to take some chalk, and we have a bunch of sidewalk chalk and stuff, and if you want to lay out exactly what that course looks like somewhere in the north parking lot, and set up your aids around that, and test drive it, and you, by all means, you can practice all you want. Or if you've got an Airbnb and you want to do it in the driveway at the Airbnb, that's a great way to test it.
Yeah, just to piggyback that, on Friday, the committee will be setting up the field, the pedestrian barriers, the layout of where each of the fields will be aligned, and then the blue barriers will be positioned out there, as well as the forms we use to set up the snow field. So you're welcome to come over there and ask questions, take a look at it, and see how that's all coming together. We just asked that, to be fair to all the teams, teams wouldn't have the opportunity until it's actually their run, that you're able to be on each of those north and south fields. But EJ said you can take a picture of it, go lay it out exactly the same in your practice area, and replicate it that way. I think we even have a few spare blue pipes, and you could actually take a few of those outside and kind of, representatively lay them around if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Have there been a lot of problems with the GPS with correction? Is that, I mean, we're new to this, so it's kind of, is that a solid way to go, or?
Let me just go over my past experience in there. So when we started the competition, Honeywell was a big part of it, and they were pretty excited about differential GPS and real-time kinematics to get real precise positioning. The big challenge was the urban canyon areas in the downtown St. Paul area. We had thank you, and you had really large buildings, so you'd have some blockages of satellites. You could definitely put your ground station close and have that running all day if you'd like, but you had the limitations of that. Now Dunwoody doesn't have that issue. They have fantastic sky visibility, except when you're close up by the building. So there's nothing wrong with using that solution if you'd like to. It's primarily a choice, meaning some teams don't want to have an external aid, if you will. They want to only have the vehicle do all the operations. Others see the benefits of the external aids, and ultrasonic sensors. I'll not pick on, but one of our ones we fondly remember, EJ had an ultrasonic. They just put a flat plate, and they wanted to bounce a signal off there to see how far they were away from the plate, and that was the end of their run. And that has a lot of benefits. Obviously, ultrasonic sensors are in almost all autonomous cars now. So there's different approaches. So it's really up to you what your configuration is. And some have worked fantastically well, meaning people have cleared the entire field and missed the posts. Others, like EJ said, are probably the biggest challenge for teams is they can't purposely mount an aid and have it sit there so that it's not going to move. Either the vehicle itself is going to move it with its plow because it's touching the ground, or EJ said that you pushing snow and then not realizing the snow itself will misalign that aid, and then it causes you not to be able to go around the field as you would like to. So those are things to test as much as you can. Go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to mention something real quick here because it kind of fits. Not every state is like this, but Minnesota is one of the ones that has a publicly available continually operating reference station so that you can get DOT corrections. I highly recommend that you email the admin for that network. It is free. You should do it. If you're doing RTK things, it is absolutely free, requires a couple of emails and, a couple of relevant, email things to keep it up. But other than that, it's free. You should take advantage of your tax dollars.
Good, thank you. Yeah, we were kind of looking at that, the course network.
That's right.
And
Not,
I just ask permission to use it, or
yeah, we use
Yeah,
it for our work, and it's a request type of activity.
okay.
yeah.
Ian, have you used it? Have you used it when you're here?
Yeah. We have an account that we use for this competition. We have accounts with some various number of states where the other places we do robot stuff.
Not the only.
And it's most frustrating when you go to a state and they don't have one of those and they just have a private sector answer. So big advocate for it's not very hard to get and it doesn't take very long to get. So I would get on that, and you should be able to be doing it real soon.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna, if there's no other questions, I think we can conclude here in a second, but I would say, like Nathaniel did there, if there's anybody that's not getting my weekly emails, I send out a weekly email every Monday. I try to do it every Monday. Sometimes it hits on a Tuesday, but I'll update things like the teams that are involved, or I know there's a lot of people that use the Robotech motor controller, and I saw that there was a 6-week lead time on those, but we found a different provider for those. So if I hear stuff like that, or if or like Ian, if you want to reply back on one of those and say, hey, here's the email address for the for how to get to that continuous GPS correction station, stuff like that. By all means, use that to share information and ask others questions. We want to see some really cool vehicles here this year.
Yeah. The competition.
I'm going to list my email in case you want to email me and ask that question later, because I don't have access to the person to check on at the moment. But if anybody wants to ask me or anybody else a case stuff, I'll post mine there.
There you go.
Yeah, it's again, I also advocate, like Ian, as you use those resources that are available, and that one is definitely one we've found really a great resource that works very well. So
what I'll do, go ahead.
I'm not a Teams expert. Will we still have access to this chat after the meeting ends?
So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to I recorded it, so I will post the video in full, and then I'll either send out the link to everybody via email. I may also post it on the website. I'll for sure send out the link to everybody on the email by Monday at the very latest. But I think you do still have access to the item as well.
The chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Hope so.
Yep. Either way, I'll get the video out, so you'll have access to the whole thing.
One last thing, and EJ's mentioned it a couple of times. The competition is encouraging everybody to participate, everybody to come as best they can. We've had some vehicles that didn't successfully make the trip. For example, axle broke, or NDSU had their whole frame crack at one time. We still encourage you to come. We would like everybody to run, so none of the approach, the safety requirements, things like that are meant to make it onerous that you can't run. It's meant to just be safe in the environment. So we'll do everything we can to make sure everybody's had 2 good runs while they're here. So we look forward to seeing everybody in January.
We haven't had to disqualify anyone yet. Let's try to keep it that way.
That's right. Yeah.
I think I found the link briefly here. I'll post it in the chat. I think I found the link to the MnDOT source to the MnCORS network you were referring to for the GPS corrections. So I just posted a link to that here in the chat.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, with that, we're 16 minutes over. I apologize for going long, but we will. I will get this. I'll wrap this up. Get this video posted for everybody, so you'll have access to it. And I can't wait to see folks. Watch the emails. I'll send out weekly emails. Those emails also go to Sunil and Richard and Kristen and a number of other people. So if you reply back to that, you're not just replying back to me. You're replying back to that whole team. So if it's a question about scoring or something like that, feel free to ask that. And the other thing is, when Sunil responds, he and get that answer out to everybody. So I had that question too, and it gets answered by a whole bunch of people at the same time. Remember the Snowplow website, autosnowplow.com, and that the rule book is posted right on the Snowplow website. It's one of the first things on there. So with that, I will we'll wrap it up and say good luck to everybody, and Can't wait to see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you, EJ.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. I think we're getting good at this.
Absolutely.
Lots of practice.
I saw you chicken. I saw you chicken out there.
I
It's,
I know we're a little long there, EJ, but
Yeah.
I appreciated the good question, so I hope that most people weren't too upset about that.
No.
I didn't even know about that MinCore stuff. That's news to me. So that's
There's
pretty-
actually a new one that's even more capable, and it's you remember Hamid?
Yeah.
He was sending me some stuff because they're using it now, and it's even got 1 centimeter accuracy type of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's
Nice.
but it's susceptible to the issues we've talked about, and you might rely on it and then have a challenge. So, but it's really awesome that you think about it. If you got a tractor out in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, you could really accurately plow your fields.